Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be doing a really quick art journal page on Burlap in the Dina Wakley journal, and this is sort of my homage to Remembrance Day. So I'm just starting off with this Donna Downey stencil, which is these beautiful poppies, and I'm using some of the Amsterdam paint and I'm going in and painting. Now in the background of this page, I have already I've used it as a bit of a user up journal, and any leftover paints I've had, I've painted into the background, which has given the surface of the burlap a little bit more tooth. It's not quite as floppy, it's quite firm, and I find doing that makes it a lot easier to paint on and stencil on. If I tried to do this straight onto the burlap itself, it would have taken an awful lot of paint to cover this, and it would have taken a lot more time to stencil over as well. So I find that if I just slap down some paint I've got left over my paintbrush in the background, it just firms up the surface of the burlap. So I personally find it a little bit more usable. So to do this page, I knew I wanted to use some poppies on it, and I've just used my Stabilo oil pencil to outline the outside of the poppy, so I know where I want to colour it, because I want to have this red colour underneath and then stencil in black over the top. The reason I use this Stabilo oil pencil is because it is actually water activated, which you can sort of see on the edges. It's sort of bled into the paint and it's given a little bit more depth to the colour, which I really like as well. So it's a great way to blend colours without really trying. So once I'd painted where my poppies are going to be, I've put out some black paint and I'm going to stencil over the top. So, I had a slight issue. I thought I'd put out black paint. I actually put out some night paint, which is a really deep blue. So that's why I've got the two piles of paint there. So I've gone back in with the black because blue and it just wouldn't have really worked. And I'm lined up my poppies with the stencil. So you can see here, having the red painted in the background is really handy, because the poppy image that I've got here has actually got some shading on it. So it would be really hard to sort of go back in and paint that and then well, I wouldn't really, but I'd have to re-stencil over the top of it again. Now this is one thing that you won't see me doing very often on my channel, is I'm actually cleaning my stencil. But the reason for this is because I've actually flipped it over so I've got my poppies going in a different direction. So if I hadn't cleaned my stencil, I would have had black paint going everywhere on my page. So you can certainly do this with stencils. It's a great way, particularly with directional stencils like this, that you can sort of flip them over and use them in any way you want. But just make sure your stencil is clean. And as I said, it's probably about the only time you'll ever actually see me clean my stencils. So because this sort of stencil ended up with the stem kind of going in exactly the same place as the other one, I've sort of just offset it somewhat, so I've got another stencil stem coming down. So as I said before, with the stenciling on the burlap, it's quite difficult to do if it's just straight burlap with paint. You can certainly use a dye sprays on it, it works quite well, but I find when the burlap is slightly more firm, it works better for me. So I've just gone in with my penny, I think, is it penny? I'm not sure, might be medieval, one of my gold metallic paints from Dina Wakley, and just straight out of the bottle I've used it to create the sort of center of my stems. It does take a little bit longer to dry, because obviously it's straight paint, but you don't need all that much. You can actually get quite dimensional effects if you do it that way, but I would certainly leave it to dry for a little bit longer. So now I decided that I wanted to put my message on here, and I'm using the words "lest we forget." So because I am living in Australia, this is a bit of a cheat. This is actually done for Anzac Day, which is in April, but unfortunately this poor little video got forgotten somewhat. It ended up at a long line of other videos, so I decided once I came across it that I'd put it out for Remembrance Day, which is the 11th of November. And I'm putting on the words "lest we forget." So because I am a primary school teacher. I teach a lot around this in my class. It's one of the areas of history that really interests me, and I want to build a passion for it in my students as well. So we talk about the stories and the history and why it's important to remember, and what the meaning of the poppies are and so on. So that's what was sort of going through my head when I was creating this. It sort of had a lot of symbolism to me. Because again, stamping on the burlap is a little bit difficult. You can see I got my paint, but it wasn't very dark. So I'm getting just a black permanent marker over the top and drawing it in again. So that is my finished page. It was really, really simple, but you can see the texture on the burlap as you do the close-up of it. It does have such a beautiful texture to work on, but it can be a little bit tricky at times. So if you are patient and have a go at it, you can get some really cool results. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye for now.